All right. Today, you guys get to watch my face again. How exciting. All right, so this is a bit of a long one, so I had to write a lot of this down, so I kind of have to read from this. But today, I think Lori, hi Lori, asked about my attitude and training and my mental toughness, things of that nature. So I kind of wanted to go over endurance, how I handle pain, and things of that nature. And so today we'll go over what is endurance, why endurance, the beginning of an endurance mindset for me, nature versus nurture, and how I handle pain, and then mindfulness. And those are kind of some of the tools that, and just in a brief overview of what I use to get through a lot of things, right? So the definition of endurance for me, my wife is texting me. Hang on. There we go. Turn that off. The definition of endurance for me is the ability to continue on regardless of the obstacle. And we run into that quite a bit as endurance athletes, right? There's a lot of obstacles, not just in nature, but with life happening while we're on some of the runs. It could be anything from a snake bite to a twig going into your hand when you crash. We have to overcome these obstacles, and I think the more that we train as endurance athletes, the better that we get at kind of getting through these obstacles. I think that's another reason why we see a lot of older people doing long distance trail running, because they have the mental capacity. They've been through it. I look at some of the stuff that I do now, and there's no way that I could have done it when I was 20 years old. I wasn't mentally prepared. I I am today. So the better at enduring, the bigger obstacles you can tackle, right? So why endurance? When I was younger, I can remember looking out at I was doing a hike at the Big South Fork, and I was in the no business area. And I can remember looking out over the mountains of a cliff overview, and I could see cliff after cliff after cliff and riverbank after riverbank. And I thought, man, it would just be so amazing. It would be so cool if someone could go straight through that stuff. Like, who is the type of person who could go straight through that, draw a straight line through it, and go up the mountain, climb up the mountains, run the ridges, and at the end of the day, get to the sunset. And I always kind of, not really knowing, but I've always kind of worked towards that. I can climb, I can go for long distances, and that came from a crap ton of training. And I can't think of anything better than being able to have those abilities. Strength is great, but what are we going to do with just strength? So I see a lot of people working out in the gym, and that's all they do is just lift super heavy weights. And that's great, and that makes you feel good. But in nature, that doesn't really cover all of it. We need cardio as well. And we also need mindset. And those three things will take you really far in nature, I have found. And so I work on all three of those things. And all those three of those things kind of overlook endurance for me, or tackle endurance for me. My story. So, the way I'm wired, and some of this will get personal, but so the way I'm wired, I can tell you as a kid that I can remember, example, I couldn't sit still, and I couldn't hold a thought for a second. I had significant ADD, and I was constantly had a ton of energy. I can actually remember playing tennis, and I was pretty decent at tennis. I was okay at tennis. And I would get a ball out for somebody on the other side, and I would jump across the net and get the ball for them on their side and bring it to them. And that's how much energy I had as a kid, and that was constant. And I never stopped. And so that's kind of gives you an idea of maybe something in my, about me, of how I'm wired and how I constantly kind of had to chase things and can't really sit still. I can tell you that my wife, when we go on vacation, which we just got back from Cabo at my cousin's wedding, I have to be doing something. I can't sit there on the beach. I'd rather be in the water. I'd rather be playing. I have to kind of constantly move and be doing things. And my wife would argue that sitting on a beach is doing things, and I love you for that, and that's okay. We're all different, right? Anyways, I think another thing that kind of contributes to my endurance is that I was bullied heavily in two grades, which was the 5th and 6th grade. I think those two things had a significant effect on me, and I kind of learned to a lot from that. And there was hard times that I had to depend on myself. Another thing that I think helped was endurance from when I'm growing up. And these are just things that I'm thinking about that potentially helped a little bit in some of my mindset and my toughness, was that I constantly had to fight with my brother. My brother was a very big person. I can remember imprints of me in the drywall of our fights. He was a lot bigger than me, so I would have to think of clever ways to beat him up. I would hide like 2x4s under the bed, or tasers, anything I could get my hand on, and let him tackle me in certain spots and knock him out. These were some of the things that I kind of grew up with. Water. So I have always loved water. I have a huge affection for water. I feel calm in water. And also have kind of I feel just, well, let me go back. I feel very calm in water. And one of the things that I've done in water is, when I was growing up, was, since I was in it so much, I learned to hold my breath for a significant amount of time. And we'll get more into that, but I think water had a huge effect into the mindset of not panicking, and the mindset of, this is all mental. And it really kind of set the stage for my mindset of when I'm going through difficult times. I think there's something to breath holding and teaching yourself to be calm. Event management. I've always put on events. I've been putting on events since I was 14 years old. I've always put together parties. I've always been hosting some kind of something. I've done that my entire life, and I just naturally fall into that. And I think with putting on events, what happens is a lot of things will pop up during events that are very stressful, and you have to learn to react and come up with creative ways to solve those issues, much like we do as endurance runners when something doesn't go our way. RDing and event management is a lot like that. My mental nature. So I am a very positive person, and I'm also a person who, no matter how much you beat me down, I will continuously go. It doesn't matter. Maybe I got that from the bullying, but I always kept my chin up, and I always kept on. And that's definitely in my nature. I will outlast you, I promise. And maybe you can't beat me, but I know that I will not stop. And also, I have the mental attitude of that if I'm thrown into lava, and I've always thought this as a kid, if I'm thrown into lava, I think that I have a good chance of survival. I just think that way. So even though that's probably not the reality, those are just it's just optimism, right? So that's kind of how I think. I'm also creative. When I constantly imagine things, see things. So even when I close my eyes at night, it's like a full-on movie in front of me. When a lot of times when I close my eyes, imagine a very lucid LSD trip, something like that. That's what happens when I close my eyes. So it's calmed down as I've gotten older, but it's always something that has stuck with me. I think also I have probably anybody who's hung around me is that I can be late, and also just time on projects and things of that nature. I'm not the best of. So, but also that could play to something to my advantage. So the next section is, how do I handle challenges? And the main part of that is in training. I love training. Training is a great tool to prepare you for the torture to come. And training really falls into three categories, and that's physical and with weights, things of that nature, cardio. So getting your cardio up and being able to move and move well for long periods of time, and then strengthening the mind through meditation, mindfulness, critical thinking. Also, we can look at kind of nature when it comes to me. So I lack the alpha acetinin 3 protein, which, from my understanding, which is limited, helps with endurance. So I have that to my advantage. I have a natural positive mindset, like I stated before, long stride, and I'm naturally just a kind of happy-go-lucky person. So even when I'm feeling pretty bad, I'm okay, and I know I'm going to be okay. I'm sorry about the beeping. My food is ready. Pain. So training is one thing we do for pain, right? And we train not to eliminate pain, but to move through it. And that's something that a lot of people know. We're never going to eliminate pain, but we are going to be able to mentally move through it. When I started my water training, the first thing I noticed when I started to hold my breath was panic, right? Hold your breath. Go do it right now for 30 seconds. Watch and observe yourself, how you will start to panic, and it'll start raising your heart rate. Cortisol will probably start shooting through your blood. These are the things that, at the beginning when I started first doing breath holding, would happen. And instead of, letting it, I'm not doing that again, that scared me, I kept doing it again and again and again and again and again, and repeat it millions of times. And through that process, just kind of learned to observe myself instead of panic about it. And and though I didn't, like, recently I went to Cabo, and we went snorkeling one day. I haven't been training in breath holding in a long time, but I can still dive down 30 feet and hold my breath. It's not because I've been training for so long or that my body's adapted to holding my breath right now, because it's not. But I can control the emotional thoughts that are in my head. I am good at that. So I still have the ability, and I can improve upon it if I want to start doing more breath holding. But the mental aspect was there. And so the same goes, well, let's see where I am right here. The want for breath in Cabo never left me, but the panic has. And that goes a long way. And I hope that makes sense to you guys. The same goes physically. Training the condition you face is key. It's also key to take baby steps to get to those conditions. But too often our egos extend getting to the top of the mountain due to injury or lack of knowledge. There are many paths to the top of a mountain. So which one will you take? Small pains. So these pains pop up and usually go away, but there's always a chance it can turn worse. So an example of this was I was just out with Austin in the Smokies. And I remember I was having, I had several just random pains like throughout the day. And you kind of just roll through those or change your gait for a little while, and eventually they go away. Now they could become something worse, and you deal with them then. But I just mainly, with small pains, I usually take on a motion that helps with the pain for some time, and then eventually it goes away. For DOMS, or delayed onset muscle soreness, inflammation is probably my biggest weakness, especially in my quads with going downhill running. They just flare up. I get bad. I get bad, especially around the fourth day or the third day, doing back-to-backs like this. And then at some point it actually starts getting better. But when you're doing 50 miles in the AT, there's no amount of training you can do to prevent soreness. And this slows me down more than anything. And with bad muscle soreness, it is best to keep upbeat and try to keep moving through it as best as you can. For me, it really causes a mental fatigue because you're dealing with it every step. And especially when you're in the mountains and you're constantly going on ridgeline, going up and down, it really starts to weigh on you, especially in the whites. That was bad. Poles are great. A lot of people say poles are great, but I also can argue that poles will slow you down significantly more. So poles, because you're looking for placement each time, and it goes slow. And you're trying not to hurt yourself, and you're moving with these poles, and it's just long. And so if you can, if it's not too dangerous on the downhills or something like that, I find it best just to try to move through it. Maybe just carry one pole or no poles and take the pain and move through it. Concentrate on moving well, but also know that you're going to be slower for some time, and that's okay. Cuts, blisters, bites, rashes, chafing. These are smaller pains, but they can get away from you as well. So, and they're mental crushers, right? So they constantly kind of nagging on you, hitting you like, it's a bug bite. Oh, this is chafing, especially chafing. We all know chafing. Prevention is the best step, first off here. Take the steps to take care of yourself ahead of time, and it'll go a long way into the run. For me, these are the things that I do. I don't ignore them when they pop up. I have dirt in my shoe, things of that nature. I go ahead and take care of it because those things are just going to continue to hurt, and I don't want the mental energy to go into me constantly thinking about it. I'd rather get rid of it, knock it out, and keep moving as best as I can, right? Situations, we kind of talked about that earlier, but I found that running sooner or later, you're going to run into obstacles, right? Circumstances that are out of your control. And for this, I generally keep a really positive attitude and a creative attitude. No bed for the night? Well, okay, let's get down and make a bed in nature. Your van's broken down? Okay, give me food for 3 days. Give me everything I'm going to need for all the supplies I'm going to need for 3 days. Figure it out. Come find me. I'll see you when you get done. Okay, and you have to figure out these things as they go, or else, especially for something like this big, or else you're going to get stuck, and it doesn't make sense. What else did I write here? So yeah, it says accept the reality, find a solution that gets you by for the moment so that you can keep moving. Never give up. I never give up. Overdoing it. I try to never let my ego get the best of me. If I can't summit, there's been plenty of times where I couldn't summit a mountain before in mountaineering. And these are things that I go on big vacations for and pay a lot of money for. But my life is more valuable than getting to the summit of a mountain, and I never forget that. And for me, a lot of the joy in these things is the training for them. And that's where I can really feel proud. If I don't make the AT record, if something happens, well, first off, that's okay. I know what I've put into this. I know the training that I've put into this. I know that I can do this. It might not be my day, and that's frustrating. But I'm not going to put my life at risk to succeed. It's not worth it to me. So I never let the ego get the best of me. And that's also another thing that we can do with training is that we don't want to let our egos like, oh man, I'm just going to go super fast on this one, or I'm going to do more than I'm supposed to. It's baby steps, and it's continuous effort, but at a pace that your body can sustain. So overdoing it, those are the things kind of how my mindset is set to those things. The day in and day out grind. Okay, sorry, I wrote a lot of this last night. Okay, overall, I find positive attitude is best. As I've stated before, I naturally fall into this mindset. However, there are some dark times. When those appear, I typically do these strategies. Okay, I remember writing this now. I swim in it. And, maybe that's a water reference as well, but I often do imagine myself swimming in pain when I'm in a lot of pain, and I let it wash over me. I understand that this is hard and these emotions will happen. I accept the emotion, and I physically I can always see the image of pain washing over me, and me swimming in it. I cannot stop it, so it's best to observe it and accept it. Saying it out loud and knowing that this is supposed to happen is a good view of a bad situation, and it kind of gives you, a seat in, what is it? It gives you a view of heaven from a seat in hell. I always like that saying. One thing I like to do often is put my hat bill down. So I'll use my hat actually to my advantage. And I did this the other day out in the Smokies. And I'll move faster because of it. Because I only like to keep the reality a few steps in front of me. I don't need to be looking out 100 yards in front of me. And what happens when you do that is you'll be in a flat section, and about 50 yards away is a hill. Yeah, well, I'm not going to run that because I'm just going to run to walk, or and that's not a good mindset to have. It's run when you should run and can run. And so I keep my hat down in front of me, and I give about 2 to 4 feet in front of my feet. And whatever's in front of those 4 feet is what I'm dealing with. I'm not dealing with the hill that's coming up in 100 yards. I'm not dealing with I'm only dealing with what's in front of me. Now, the bad part about that is that you will hit things. So keep that in mind as well, because tree branches are real. So anyways, hat bills, that's a good one. I create patterns. So when I'm in pain, I create patterns quite a bit. When I'm in a lot of pain, I use patterns to get through it, and also to kind of keep my mind busy. So that could be counting, that could be a step pattern, 1, 2, breathe, 1, 2, things of that nature. I use those quite a bit, and I actually use that at the end of the Ozark Highlands. I was using timing patterns to 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. I used it at Sheltowee as well. Got my Sheltowee hat on. I remember one time I was feeling horrible, and I was like, okay, well, I'm feeling really bad right now. What can I do about it? Well, why don't we try to move fast? And what can we do how long can you go fast? Well, let's see. Why don't we just do 10 seconds? You could do 10 seconds at a jog, and then we can do a minute's rest. In my mind, the fact that I said that I could do a minute's rest for 10 seconds of a jog, I was like, yeah, I'm in on that. That seems pretty doable. And so I started the time patterns, and then soon I was like, okay, I think I could do 20 seconds and 30 seconds, and then I could do a minute on and a minute off. And it just kept working up and up. And all of a sudden I was doing 5 minutes on and 1 minute rest. And I remember doing that, and it took up like 6 hours of my day, just going through that pattern and getting it to the top of where I could. And at the end of the day, I was running the majority of it. It was quite amazing. And so patterns are a huge benefit. Now, I will say that any kind of mental exercise like that is going to take up energy. Mental energy is still metabolic, and it takes energy to have those things. So keeping up the timing and things of that nature is draining, but in some cases it's necessary, and it can help you significantly. Let's see, what's the next one? I breathe as much as I can through my nose and fill my lungs until they're full. There are benefits to breathing through your nose, and I try to do it as often as I can. It's very calming for me to breathe through my nose and to remember to breathe as deep as I can through my nose. It's just, when you're breathing through your mouth, it kind of gets robotic, so it kind of breaks things up as well. I close one eye and shut down one input. This kind of puts me in a calm state as well. I often do this on roads and track when I'm going full speed and are at a really high clip for a long period of time. If I shut down, it's almost like shutting down half of my brain, I feel like. But I naturally, if I close one eye and just let enough light in through the other eye, it's almost like I'm outside of myself, observing myself. And if my eyes are open, I'm in it. But if I'm kind of have my eyes closed and I'm more in a state of, I'm this thing that's breathing really hard, and I can see this, and there's pain coming in as well. I can kind of feel that, but I'm observing it instead of experiencing it. And I don't know if that really makes sense, but it's something that I do, and it puts me in a calmer state. I get angry. When I get angry, I get focused. And if you ever see me race, I'm I'm pretty focused. I can use anger from my past. And those are things that I kind of use when I'm out there. So anger is like fuel. It can set you on fire and destroy you, or you can use it to take you to the moon. You pick, you know. I take past experiences to help light a fire. My mother's death, being bullied, listening to naysayers my whole life. I use that. And sometimes I will even make things up in my head because I have a good imagination. I'll make things up in my head of things that would make me mad, or things that didn't happen that if they did happen would make me mad. And I'll use that for sure. And I think at some level, I think we all do that. I use something that's negative and turn it into something that can push me. I see a lot of people that don't have that capability. My hardest times to run are when I'm sad. So that's a capability that I'm not good at. When I'm sad, it takes the winds out of my sail. I'm not good at being sad. And luckily for me, I'm not too often sad. So that's good. And I try to get back to being optimistic. But when I'm sad, it is hard for me to move, or when I have something on my head or in my heart. I use the public for accountability. There's a reason I announce these FKTs. I want the world to judge me. I want to feel that pressure. That pressure doesn't bother me because I really don't care at the end of the day what people think, if I've made it or not. I know myself, and I know the work that I've put into this run or any of my runs, and I stand by my work. But I do use media. It does act as a tool to push me, because I know people are out there looking, and I can use that. Again, this is taking something that potentially somebody else would think was bad, where I think, okay, cool, I'm going to use that to push myself. So it's motivation for me. I think about my wife and kids. I think about the effort that they put into this with me, and that they deserve this win, because they put in a lot. And so I really do think about that quite a bit. That they're, also that, that they would be proud of me. And so those are two things that I use for my family that are pretty significant. And I guess the last one is I love an underdog story. So, and I definitely feel in this situation that I am the underdog. So that draws me to want to get it. The last part that I'll talk about for things that help me when I'm moving through difficult times is mindfulness and critical thinking. And I know that's kind of in high praise right now. A lot of people, it's just the trend, but it's something that I've worked on for a while. I'm not very good at it. I continue to try to get better at it. It's something that's hard for me because I have problems with attention. It's gotten better as I've gotten older, but it's definitely something that has changed my life significantly. So Socrates says the unexamined life is not worth living. And that might not be true to a full extent, but by not observing your emotions and understanding them, life is needlessly painful for you and for others. Most of us live with enough capacity to get by in our wants. Most of our wants are not necessary and waste our time with things that don't really matter, and time is the most precious gift. I argue that we can do more. So why do we exercise? For most, it's to improve the quality of our life in some way. And I can argue that mental training can improve your life vastly more than training physically. It's just kind of easier to do the physical training, and maybe it's just because of our society and how it is right now. So why do we spend so much time to make ourselves physically stronger and not more emotionally? Granted, we exercise mental strength in the things that we do, such as endurance, but we don't understand ourselves as we should. Everything you have ever felt in your entire life, all the emotions, hate, love, and so forth, doesn't exist anymore. And if you say, oh no, Bobby Joe broke my heart in the 6th grade, and I'm still bitter about it, I promise you. That might be true, that at this moment while you're thinking of Bobby Joe, that you're upset and that you're angry. But how long can you hold that thought? A minute? Hour? Day? You would have to continuously manufacture that thought and that emotion if you were doing that, which I would almost say is impossible. We live in the moment. And so, sure, you can bring up the emotion and you can think about it and it'll trigger an emotion in your head that, oh yeah, I'm angry about that. But you don't live in it. We're a very reactive species. We're reacting to the latest thought, either if it's past, present, or even future. We live in the now. And knowing that, I think there is a lot of power for individuals, a chance to change how we interpret and react. Your mind determines the quality of your life. Remember that. I think you have seen patterns probably here in my writing today that my mindset tries to stay positive as it can, and it's not forced. And for some people, I understand that it might be. But I think regardless of your mindset, that understanding yourself and observing yourself, the whys of how you react, can greatly help you in life. The nature of our minds is one of the greatest frontiers. Meditation, the practice of mindfulness, is the greatest tool I know. What did I write here? Sorry, that part's not right. It's also one of the hardest areas for me, as I mentioned before, as I don't have a great attention span. So it's something that I really have to work on, which I like working on things. So I encourage everybody to do some kind of mental training and just to get into it, even at some level. I think it will significantly benefit you. And so those are kind of the things of how I handle. I know it's kind of a lot and maybe tedious, but those are the things that I use when I'm going through hard times. And it's also a little bit of a background of who I am and where I'm coming from. And I hope that answers your question, Lori, of how I get through tough times. And we'll have more videos of the questions you guys had on one of the posts here soon. Take care.